Have you ever noticed the way older women look at their husbands? That subtle eye roll when he tells a familiar story. The deep sigh when he asks where his glasses are. Again, the quick glance of irritation when he interrupts her. Something shifts in long marriages, transforming admiration into annoyance, affection into frustration. The woman who once couldn't imagine life without this man now seems to tolerate his presence barely. You see it everywhere if you pay attention. At restaurant tables, family gatherings, grocery store aisles. The same quality she once found endearing, his confidence, his focus, his practical approach, now seem to grate on her very last nerve. And he's left bewildered, wondering what happened to the woman who used to laugh at his jokes and hang on his every word. This transformation isn't about falling out of love or the inevitable friction of familiarity. The truth is far more surprising. It's about a profound awakening within a woman's spirit as she journeys through the seasons of life. An awakening so rarely discussed that most couples are blindsided when it arrives. Today, we'll explore this mystery together. Why women start to dislike their husbands as they age, and reveal the surprising purpose behind this seemingly negative change. What you're about to discover might challenge everything you believe about long-term relationships, but also holds the key to the deepest connection you've ever experienced. The story of a woman's changing feelings begins decades before those feelings fully emerge. Think of it as a river changing course underground long before the surface shows any signs of movement. In most marriages, especially for women now in their 60s and beyond, there was an unspoken arrangement that shaped everything. Women became the keepers of emotion, tracking birthdays, managing social connections, sensing when someone needed comfort, and anticipating problems before they arose. Men focused outward, building careers, handling finances, fixing things around the house. This wasn't something women complained about at first. Being the heart of the home felt natural, even meaningful, like a gardener who finds joy in watching others enjoy the fruits of her labor. Many women discover profound satisfaction in creating emotional safety and connection for everyone around them. They became experts at reading others' needs, often before those needs were even expressed. They learned to smooth over conflicts, to translate between family members who couldn't understand each other, to remember the small details that make celebrations meaningful. Meanwhile, their husbands built lives around different strengths. They protected, provided, solved practical problems. They showed love through reliability and presence, even when they couldn't always express feelings in words. Like parallel dancers moving to the same music, but following different steps, husbands and wives created a pattern that worked. Until it didn't. The shift begins subtly, usually as children grow up and leave home. Suddenly, the house feels quieter. The constant demands of raising a family easy. Retirement approaches or arrives. And in this new spaciousness, something awakens in a woman's awareness. A voice that may have been whispered for decades now speaks clearly. What about me? What about my own journey? It's like being a composer of a beautiful symphony that everyone else gets to perform while you've been stuck conducting from the sidelines. After decades of making sure everyone else's music is heard, women suddenly realize they barely played their own notes. This awakening doesn't happen all at once. It builds gradually, like the slow changing of seasons. But once it begins, it transforms everything, including how a woman sees and responds to her husband. Suddenly, the husband who never remembered birthdays without being reminded seems willfully dependent rather than charmingly forgetful. The man who dominates conversations at dinner parties appears dismissive of others' voices, particularly his wife's, rather than confidently sociable. What once seemed like complementary strengths now feel like an imbalance and a burden. Many women also become acutely aware of just how much invisible labor they performed over the decades. It's like carrying a heavy backpack For so long you stop noticing its weight, until you take it off and realize how much lighter you could feel. The mental load of tracking household needs, the emotional work of maintaining relationships, the constant alertness to others' feelings, all done so automatically that her husband likely never noticed it happening at all. Consider what this emotional caregiving actually entails. It's remembering that your sister-in-law is allergic to shellfish when planning holiday meals. It's noticing when your teenager seems unusually quiet and drawing them out with just the right questions. It's sensing when your husband had a difficult day and needs either space or encouragement. It's maintaining connections with extended family through calls, cards, and thoughtful gifts that say you matter to us. It's tracking medication schedules, doctor appointments, and health concerns for everyone in the family. This invisible work extends into the social realm too. Many women become the architects of their couple's social life, arranging gatherings, maintaining friendships, remembering the names of colleagues' children. They often serve as the emotional translators in social settings, smoothing over their husband's blunt comment with a gentle reframe, or noticing when someone at the dinner table feels left out and drawing them into conversation. They become experts at reading the subtle emotional cues that many men have never been taught to notice. And then there's a realm of family historian and keeper traditions. Women typically shoulder the responsibility for documenting family life through photos and stories, for creating meaningful holiday rituals, and for maintaining connections between generations. They're the ones who know which ornament was given by grandma, which stories need to be told at Thanksgiving dinner, and which family recipes must be preserved and passed down. This labor isn't just about doing tasks. It's about carrying the emotional responsibility for the well-being of the family system. It's about constantly being alert to the needs, feelings, and connections that keep a family functioning as a cohesive unit, rather than just a collection of individuals under one roof. And it's work that has traditionally been invisible, unacknowledged, and certainly not compensated in any tangible way. There's wisdom in this awakening, though it often emerges first as irritation, like a forest that needs occasional fires to clear undergrowth and allow for new growth. This phase of marriage requires burning away outdated patterns to make space for something new. The frustration many women feel is the friction of transformation, uncomfortable but necessary for growth. At the same time, husbands are navigating their significant transitions. Retirement can shake a man's sense of purpose and identity. Health challenges may arise that affect confidence and vitality. The strong oak that never bent in the winds of life's challenges might find himself feeling more vulnerable. More in need of the very emotional support his wife is now less willing to automatically provide. What's particularly challenging for men is that this shift in their wives often coincides with their major life transitions. After decades of defining themselves primarily through work and achievement, retirement can create a profound identity crisis. Who am I if not the provider, the problem solver, the expert in my field? Many men have invested so much of themselves in career success that they've developed few other sources of meaning and satisfaction. They may have neglected friendships outside of work, failed to cultivate hobbies or interests unrelated to their professional identity, or simply never learned to define their worth beyond their ability to produce and provide. Physical changes add another layer of challenge. The body that once seemed indestructible now shows signs of vulnerability. Energy levels decrease. Health concerns arise. Sexual functioning may change. For men raised with traditional notions of masculinity, these natural aging processes can feel like a threat to their core identity. And just when they might most need emotional support and reassurance, their wives are often in the process of setting new boundaries around their caretaking roles. The result? Many husbands respond in ways that only reinforce their wives' frustration. Some become more dependent, unconsciously seeking the nurturing and emotional management they've grown accustomed to receiving. Others become defensive or dismissive, unable to hear their wives' emerging needs without feeling personally attacked. "I've always been this way," they might say. "Why is it suddenly a problem now?" Still others withdraw into silence or outside activities, creating even more emotional distance at a time when the deeper connection is what's actually needed. This creates a perfect storm in many marriages. The wife is pulling back from caretaking precisely when her husband might want more of it. He feels confused or hurt by her increasing criticism. "I don't understand what's changed," he thinks. "I've been the same person all these years." He might respond by becoming more demanding, as to try and pull her back into familiar patterns, or by withdrawing into silence or outside interests, creating even more emotional distance. The timing of this awakening isn't random. There's a biological wisdom to its emergence in women's later years. Research suggests that women's brains actually change after menopause, with shifts in hormones like estrogen and oxytocin that once predisposed many women toward nurturing and consensus building. Some neurobiologists believe these hormonal changes trigger an increased drive toward autonomy and self-actualization, as if nature itself is permitting women to focus more on their own needs after decades of caring for others. Indigenous cultures have long recognized this natural transition in women's lives. Many traditional societies acknowledge that women move through distinct phases, from maiden to mother to wise woman or elder. In the final phase, women are often granted new freedoms and responsibilities, stepping into roles as healers, advisors, and keepers of cultural wisdom. Their focus shifts from nurturing individual families to serving the broader community, and their status often rises accordingly. What modern marriages lack is a cultural framework for understanding and honoring this natural evolution. What makes this particularly challenging is that many couples lack the language to discuss these changes. After decades of established patterns, they've never developed ways to talk openly about emotional needs. Instead, frustrations emerge as complaints about specific behaviors, his loud chewing, her constant corrections, his obliviousness to household needs, her apparent rejection of gestures that once pleased her. Beneath these surface irritations lies something much deeper, a fundamental reckoning with the terms of the relationship itself. The wife is essentially saying, not always in words, but through her changing responses, that the original arrangement no longer works for her. She's ready for a new balance, one that honors her emerging sense of self and her desire for more reciprocity. The tragedy is that what looks like dislike or rejection often masks a deeper yearning for authentic connection. The woman isn't wanting less intimacy. She's wanting a different kind of intimacy, one based on mutual seeing and appreciation rather than prescribed roles and unconscious expectations. She's not rejecting her husband as a person. She's rejecting a pattern of relating that no longer serves her evolution. But without the language to express this distinction, her frustration often comes across as personal criticism, triggering defensiveness rather than understanding. It's also worth noting that this transition affects different marriages in different ways. Couples who have maintained more equitable emotional labor throughout their relationship, who have developed habits of open communication about changing needs, who have supported each other's individual growth alongside their shared journey. These couples often navigate this phase with less conflict and more mutual discovery. It's not the length of the marriage that determines how well couples adapt to this transition, but the patterns of relating they've established along the way. So what happens when a woman in her 60s or beyond finds herself increasingly frustrated with a husband she once adored? Is this simply the inevitable decline of long-term marriage? No. In fact, this challenging transition can become the doorway to the most authentic and satisfying phase of the relationship, if both partners can navigate with awareness. For women, recognize that your changing feelings aren't a failure of love or commitment. You're not becoming a difficult old woman. You're awakening to a deeper truth about yourself and your needs. This irritation you feel is like the discomfort of a butterfly emerging from its chrysalis, necessary for continued growth. Be gentle with yourself. Understand that anger or resentment often covers deeper feelings of grief for years spent ignoring your own needs or fear about claiming your space now. The most helpful step many women can take is to clearly identify and name their needs rather than focusing on their husband's shortcomings. Instead of "you never listen to me," try "I need to feel heard and valued when I speak." Instead of "you're so helpless around the house," try "I need more shared responsibility for our home life." This shift from criticism to clear requests create an opening for genuine change rather than defensive reactions. It's also important to recognize that your husband can't fulfill needs he doesn't understand or provide support he hasn't learned how to give. Many men of this generation simply weren't taught the emotional skills that women now desire in their partners. This doesn't excuse harmful behavior, but it does suggest that patience and clear guidance may be more effective than criticism or withdrawal. Just as you wouldn't expect someone who never learned to swim to immediately dive into deep water, you may need to accept that your husband is learning new relational skills that don't come naturally to him. For men, understand that your wife's changing responses aren't a rejection of you personally, but part of her necessary evolution. The qualities that make her seem more critical now, her increasing clarity about her own needs, her unwillingness to automatically accommodate, her desire for more reciprocity, are actually signs of her growing wisdom. This isn't about you failing as a husband, but about both of you entering a new phase that requires new awareness. Perhaps the most important gift men can offer during this transition is genuine curiosity about their wives' experiences. Ask questions, not to debate or defend, but to truly understand. What has it been like to carry the emotional responsibilities for our family all these years? What dreams did you set aside that you'd like to explore now? What would make you feel more appreciated and supported? Then listen, not to formulate your response, but to absorb and honor her truth. This is also a time for men to develop greater emotional self-sufficiency, learning to manage your own emotions rather than expecting your wife to soothe or translate them, building friendships that provide meaningful connection outside your marriage, developing interests that bring you genuine satisfaction. These steps not only reduce the burden on your wife, but also enrich your own experience of life's later chapters. Communication becomes essential during this transition, though it may need to take new forms. Direct confrontations rarely work after decades of established patterns. Instead, try gentle conversations about hopes and dreams for this phase of life, perhaps while walking together or sitting side by side rather than face to face. Share stories about your parents or friends who navigated this transition as a way of indirectly discussing your own feelings. For men, learning to truly see and appreciate the invisible labor your wife has performed can be transformative. This isn't just about saying thank you, but about developing genuine curiosity about her experience. What has it been like to carry the emotional responsibilities for the family all these years? What dreams did she defer? What would bring her joy now? Listening deeply to your wife, without trying to fix or problem solve, creates a new intimacy neither of you may have experienced before. Both partners benefit from developing new interests and skills, individually and together. Learning something new as a couple, a language, an art form, a physical practice like Tai Chi, creates common ground outside of established roles. Supporting each other in pursuing individual passions brings fresh energy into the relationship. The husband who takes up cooking or the wife who finally writes her memoir are not just fulfilling themselves, but bringing their authentic growth back to the partnership. Think of this phase as the autumn of your relationship. Not an ending, but a season of spectacular beauty and transformation. Yes, some leaves must fall, some patterns must die away, but this natural shedding makes space for the essential to be seen more clearly. The fruits of your long relationship, deep knowledge of each other, shared history, the comfort of familiarity, combined with the brilliant colors of individual growth and self-discovery. Couples who thrive in this stage learn to honor the central paradox of every long-term relationship. We want both security and growth, both connection and independence. The marriages that remain vital into the later years are those where both partners can say, "I want you to be fully yourself, even when that challenges me, and I trust that your growth ultimately enriches our life together." This is love in its most mature form, not the intoxicating attachment of youth, but the spacious appreciation that comes with wisdom. This journey isn't easy. It requires courage to question patterns established over decades. It takes humility to acknowledge that what worked in the past may not serve the future. And it demands patience to create new ways of being together when old habits run deep. But the rewards can be extraordinary. A relationship marked by mutual respect rather than obligation. A partnership where both people continue to grow and discover new aspects of themselves and each other well into their golden years. If you're experiencing this shift in your own marriage, approach it with the same patience you would give any important growth process. Just as a garden doesn't transform from winter to spring overnight, your relationship needs time to adapt to this new season. Remember that what looks like irritation or withdrawal might actually be the first signs of a deeper, more authentic connection trying to emerge. I'd love to hear your experiences with this journey in the comments below. Has your relationship changed as you've grown older? What challenges and discoveries have you encountered? Your stories help others feel less alone in this important transition. If you found this perspective helpful, please hit that like button and subscribe for more conversations about navigating life's later chapters with grace and wisdom. Until next time, may you find both peace and adventure in this beautiful autumn season of life.